Well, look, Jim Chalmers argues, however, that unlike the coalition, he says the coalition only returned 40% of the gains to the budget bottom line, whereas he says this government is returning 82% of revenue upgrades to the bottom line. So he's saying that this is a sign that Labor is managing the budget and the economy more responsibly. What's your response to this?
Well, that's because the windfall is so big. You've got an unemployment rate which the Labor Party inherited under 4%, so that's an enormous change in the tax take in the positive. The resources sector has broken all records and people are out there, and that's where they're employed, Shari. They are out in regional Australia, regional Queensland, regional WA, delivering for those companies, working hard, paying their taxes, paying their own way, and that is a windfall for the Labor budget. And let's be clear, Jim Chalmers has also spent an enormous amount on a sugar hit. Now, someone who's out there that's drowning, they'll jump into any life raft, and I think they'll be very grateful for any sort of support that they can get at the moment. But if you don't fix the fundamentals, it's only going to help this quarter.
Don't they deserve a life raft? Australians are doing it so tough at the moment. How can you say to them you shouldn't get $500 in energy rebates?
Well, that's not what I said at all. I think they'll be very grateful for the support, and they need it. But they should also remember that what's being taken away, the low-income tax offset, for example, in my electorate of Hinkler, that affects 51,000 people, so up to $1,500 that they would have got because of their hard work. And instead, they'll get a few shekels, depending on what the agreement is with the states. And in another quarter, it won't help them. I mean, the power prices in Brisbane went up by more than 30% in just one quarter. It is unsustainable, and unless you address those fundamental issues, this will go on and on and on. They just can't pay their bills. They can't pay their mortgage.
When you say fundamental issues, you're
doing it very
speaking
tough.
about inflation.
Well, inflation and electricity prices in particular. If you actually get the price down, well, a rising tide floats all boats. Every small business, every company, every individual that has to pay, they just can't afford the increases. It's extraordinary. And the idea that you can subsidise your way out of that. I mean, we saw Anthony Albanese in Question Time today claiming they've had this great intervention. Well, that intervention is going to cost a couple of $1 billion in payments to coal companies, for example, supports from the states. How about we just get power prices down?
Yeah, and Keith Pitt, do you think the government is doing enough to tackle inflation when the RBA has had to raise rates 11 times, or do you think the government, is risking increasing inflation? And we've heard some economists make this point with its $14 billion cost of living package.
I think you answer your own question, Shari. The reason that rates keep going up is because they can't get a handle on inflation. It is running at 7%. And, mate, I'll go back to the KFC test. The drive-thrus in my patch, they're empty. People are not actually spending what they don't have. They're struggling with their mortgage because of the increases. Inflation is through the roof. And if you don't get a handle on that, the economy will spiral. That is in no one's interest, particularly the Australian people's interest.
I actually read today that McDonald's is returning record profits and 1 in 4 coffees is sold at McDonald's. There's a story in the Australian newspaper's business section. But does it look like, and I'm going to have Angus Taylor on my program tomorrow night. He's, of course, the Shadow Treasurer, and so we'll see what his response is to the budget. But does it look like the opposition and the Nationals will be opposing this generous cost of living package, the welfare payments, the increase to JobSeeker?
Well, we'll wait for the details, obviously. We want to see what assumptions have been made. I mean, if Jim Chalmers has assumed that the price of coal is going to remain in the hundreds of dollars into the forecast, well, clearly it's an absolute fallacy. We've always been very conservative with our forecasts around the resources sector because those prices change rapidly and they do change a lot. Right now it's a windfall. I'm really pleased for the people who are out there working hard, who have a job because of the success of the sector. But look at what Labor is doing to it. Not only do they want to kill Australia's golden goose in the resources sector, they want to tar and feather it on the way. They are killing confidence in Australia. The Japanese ambassador has said we now have sovereign risk in this country. That is just extraordinary. It shouldn't happen. We need the federal government to be behind the resources sector, whether it's coal or gas or anything else. Instead, they'll be increasing taxes, they'll be smashing them with the safeguard mechanism, They are destroying confidence, and that is bad for the economy, and particularly regional Australia if we lose those projects.
Okay, Keith Pitt, thank you very much for your time.